Hey everybody, it's Tripl-L coming in to talk about My Hero Academia chapter 359 on a Tuesday morning. I'm hoping to get this out really quick. And I'm not sure if we'll spend too much time on the chapter. Like if we do, it's because I will have really tried my best to bring up little details here and there. But yeah, this chapter of Hero Academia, let's start with the general notes very quickly. Because like, you know what, I think we'll talk a lot about like Mirio at the end. But for general notes, I gotta say I am very surprised with this chapter. This has been in general very surprising to me, going to Shigaraki in general, which is really good because the author is surprising here. I'm in a really good position personally with my enjoyment, just because I think that I feel like every week that he continues with the Shigaraki portion of the fight, it makes things harder for the spinner portion and the toga portion, just because like I'm not really sure what the grand plan here is for how he wants to like tie these battles up. It's just like Shigaraki is such a, like, this is like a title fight, right? And the other fights are like the undercards. So I just don't understand what exactly, you know, the grand plan here is, which is good because like chances are the author has like the bigger plan, you know, on the other side, and he could possibly make this very good. But you know, like the counter to this, the idea that the author could do this and make something very climactic, the idea that he can make the fights flow really, really well and make it really engaging, you can't really trust that because the author also did joint training, and joint training was not very interesting for a lot of people. I thought it was very great. But in general, we know that there have been moments where things have been kind of anticlimactic in Hero Academia. That's what makes this relatively hard. And if we're speaking from the author's perspective here, or like, yeah, if we're trying to understand the author here, he doesn't have experience doing these type of fights. He doesn't have experience doing multiple climactic battles in multiple battlefields. The one time he has experience trying to even shove all of 1A into an arc to make sure that they do get something, and that was joint training. Joint training does not have great reviews. Joint training was very, you know, like we all remember the time period of how people reacted to joint training. We all saw what happened with the anime, people saying that it wasn't, oh, you know, people defending Hero Academia because they had to defend it at the time. The author's not experienced with handling this many multiple battlefields while also juggling or having the necessity of making sure 1A gets stuff. And we can say that he's trying to make sure 1A gets stuff because Seiro got his little moment. Kirishima and Mina are on another battlefield. We know that from what he's hyped up that he has ideas for these characters, and we'll have to see what ultimately happens. But the reason I'm bringing this up is because this stops being just an issue of storytelling. This becomes a logistical challenge, because with the multiple battlefields and multiple characters that haven't really been built up like Seiro, like the issue that really happens here, not only does he have to make the story make sense, but now he also has to deal with the external pressure of like, what happens if the fandom gets bored of these other characters and just wants to see Izuku. We've already been seeing shades of that, people making jokes about, oh, you know, Izuku showed up for like one panel last chapter, wait, great, we finally get to see him. Izuku's not going to be coming back into the fight for a long time because Izuku will trivialize it and he will drive it right to the climax. That's why you have to keep Izuku away. But that issue, we've seen the problems that happen when you keep Izuku away. We saw it back during Villain Academia. People were sad that Izuku wasn't around. So this is like ultimately the big problem here. Hero Academia does not have that many characters that can actually carry the show compellingly. One of them is Endeavor, and Endeavor just got through with his bit, and we're going into the other one who can carry it, Bakugo. So the two of them back to back is like where the big concern is. Anyway, again, this is what makes this whole little period interesting because it's such a logistical challenge. I do want to see how the author kind of pulls it off here, because this is actually going to be very interesting, because he's doing something that he's never done before. He's got to deal with the possibility or the threat of the series becoming less popular, and then, you know, like the external pressure that comes with that. Ultimately, very interesting. I am ready to be surprised at what the grand plan here is. Right now, if I was going to be pessimistic, what I think is going to happen the longer we spend time with Shigaraki is that Spinner and Toga and the other spots get more off-screen shenanigans going on, and maybe we only, like, it shortens the other fights pretty much is what I think is going to happen. Like you're going to see less and less of an organic build-up. I also think, because of how strange this all is, I think there's a possibility that, you know, next chapter we go to another battlefield. Heck, you know, Medio might be the last little thing we see for this battlefield for a while. I'm going to be looking at the spoilers tonight, hoping that they come out. I'm going to be very curious about whether or not we leave the battlefield. Either way, it's going to be really interesting, and I'm very excited overall. This is going to be an incredibly interesting situation with Hero Academia, just because of how much is being promised. And it's just, like, again, like, there's no reason to actually trust the author's ability here, because Shoji, he's a character that the author keeps telling us is doing his best. We don't see it, right? This guy has already failed Shoji. The only reason we know that Shoji's going to get something really big is because he's been telling us for years that it's going to happen. So he's not good. This isn't good in any which way. It's already compromised. We're already in a very compromised situation. But yeah, we'll see how it goes. Just for comparison points, just to like understand what other authors have done. Bleach is probably the only series that can actually get away with doing many battlefields. Like, Bleach is the only series that could take a character like Yumichika and actually make that interesting and make a bunch of lesser rank art interesting. The reason Bleach could do it is because Bankai and Shikai are very powerful plot tools. So it's always exciting to see that. Like, Bleach is the one series where a character, like, revealing their final power will actually cause the fandom to explode for months because it's just so interesting. On Naruto's side, during the war, the trick that Kishimoto had used is that he made Naruto show up as clones in multiple battlefields. So you kept the main character across multiple battlefields. The reason I bring this up is because, like, this isn't by accident. There are things that authors do to help their series along. Like, this isn't something that you just take, you know, for granted. Anyway, enough of that. Let's move on. It's just my general notes. That's what I'm thinking. I am very just ready for the future. I want to see what the author's going to do, and I'm really hoping for a lot of success here. But it's a learning experience, I think. It's going to be a learning experience. It'll be really cool to review it in the future, though. I'll love Hero Academia, like 10 years from now, to call back to Hero Academia's plot movements and talk about what worked, what did it, and what series that come after it inspired. That's actually what's more valuable about Hero Academia right now. It's going to be something that can be compared to others in the future, and that's actually very cool, the way that Bleach and Naruto are now. All right, so I want to begin with the color page. Let's just start there, because the color page is super interesting. 8th anniversary, that's really cool. When I was looking at the color page, I was looking for what characters are important and which ones aren't, and it was just cool to see little, you know, people hidden here and there. So I just want to start off, because I think I'm gonna make a joke about this in the title, but like, Izuku and Ochako holding hands. Now, this isn't that special because a lot of people are holding hands all over the place. Another one I'd like to point out is Jiro holding hands with Momo and Kaminari. I was really sad at first because I saw her holding hands with Momo. I was like, oh, shoot, with Kaminari, where are you? And then it's like, oh, no, he's there, all right. Suyu's holding hand with Nejire, which I think is unfortunate. I think Suyu should have been holding hands with Ochako as well. Like, I get why Nejire is there, is because she's the connection to Ryukyu. It's just, that's such a dumb relationship. There is nothing really there other than, yeah, she's my coworker. Yeah, no, man, screw that. Even Tetsu, the way he's like, you know, he's got his hook around Vlad's neck. Even that's better. Not feeling it. Really not feeling it. Kaminari and Mineta's relationship makes sense, but yeah, the Suyu one, terrible. That's a terrible association. Now let's see. What I loved on Izuku's side, though, is that Koda and Eri get like really prominent billing. I love that because those are like his little fans, so that is like cute and adorable. Shindo's right next to Izuku's head with his girlfriend. That's pretty good. What I think is really interesting here as well is that Stain is actually on the deep hero side. So you could spot him right over here below Kaminari. Very interesting. And what I say about deep hero side is because when you look at the left side of the screen, you see... Actually, the left side of the screen like is the villainous side, right? For Japanese media. I think it is the villainous side. Anyway, on the left side of the screen, you see all the villains there, like, you know, the League of Villains. And Nagant's also on the left side of the screen. So really interesting there. Also, we have Gentle and La Brava right there below Izuku. I think it's really good that they are close to Izuku in general. I really like that. So that's pretty good. Also, I'm just noticing now, but I don't see All For One here. That's good. He's pretty ugly, so he kind of would ruin this. So I'm okay with that. That's alright. That's pretty solid. In terms of other characters, you have Mera over here. You have Miss Joke and Death Arms. I think Death Arms might end up being important. I think if Eri gets into danger, I think Death Arms might be the one to save her. But let's see. Over here, below Inasa, you also have the one girl that Nejire competed against in the beauty pageant. Let's see, any other little details here and there. No, oh yeah, Animal Girl. This girl that only showed up for a few chapters and only served to be a victim, who apparently had a great design, is right here. And like, she's not close enough to Shoji to matter. But yeah, you know, Shoji's like, she's looking at Shoji, so like they're really close together, so like the association continues. Over there you have the guys that bullied Class 1A during the Autumn Festival or whatnot. Yeah, oh, and Lockrock, of course, Lockrock is there too. And I think this one might be Shizaki, I'm not too sure, but that might be Shizaki. We also have Horikoshi in the image as well. He's right here behind Bakugo. That's Horikoshi's author avatar, if I recall correctly. Mount Lady is close to Kamui Woods. That's appropriate because they're probably dating. So that's pretty nice. That's pretty cute and adorable. Yeah, overall, we got quite a few characters. I think the ones that are interesting are the ones that you don't really expect. That being, well, I guess the one I didn't really expect would be like Animal Girl. But I guess she's super... Well, she's going to be important for Shoji's storyline because that's like the author's doing his best to like just fit whatever he can into that thing. Anyway, yeah, overall, I really like the color page. Oh, and also this week we got a color page of Izuku versus All for One, whatever, don't care. We'll see what it looks like when it actually happens, if it actually does happen. That's just a hype-up page. Anyway, we begin. My Hero Academia, chapter 359, proper stuff. So the first page is an establishment page about what's going on. And again, you know, when I see all of this mess, it really does just look to me like Horikoshi really likes doing mecha. That's all I really learn here. I think Horikoshi would like to do a series where there's people frantically like running around the interior of a giant fighting robot, trying to repair it as the pilot's fighting. I think he wants to do this. I think we'll likely see this if someone doesn't stop him. But yeah, no, I like the hecticness here. We find out that the business course is also recording at this moment. Now, one of the important details here is that the electromagnetic barrier is preventing the people inside of UA from communicating with the outside world. So this is important because the author sets something up later with Mandalay. Now, I do think there is a weakness here. This electromagnetic barrier and the issue with the communication, I think this should have been cleared up way earlier with Mandalay when we were introduced to the idea that she was there. I think bringing it up now is a product of forgetting to like put in this little... This is a clarification detail. It should have been there at the beginning. The story would be a little bit stronger if it was, just because you're adding in this thing like, oh yeah, also this is a thing going on. Now, the electromagnetic barrier ruining the electromagnetic waves, that makes sense. I'm not sure if it makes sense... I would need to see how far that field goes. I'm not sure that makes sense for the underside, because it depends on it depends on the magnetic field. The problem is, because Mandalay brings it up later, Mandalay was able to talk properly despite the field, and now the field seems to be like unstable. But the fact that Mandalay could speak so closely to Izuku next to the field makes it kind of weird that the kids inside are having a it really depends on the, you know what, it depends on the physics. This could work, this works. The inside of that whole place could be interfering with everything if they're not careful. So anyway, page 4, Mandalay's telepath quirk is the sole means of informing the world on the state of affairs here. I actually really like that. I like the idea that Mandalay is right outside and she's the one that is communicating between the people inside of UA repairing stuff and the people outside. It makes sense where she is now, because that means she's the bridge between the worlds. So she communicates with the interior and then she uses technology to communicate with the exterior. Very good. Okay, sorry about that. I had to step away for a quick little bit here. Anyway, the business course is doing a documentary. I like the idea, like the way that they were framing it, of saying like, oh yeah, you know, this school is a tomb. People were talking about it being, oh, I think it was Shigaraki that was talking about it being a tomb. So I like that little metaphor came back here. The business guy that we see here, we see that his hair explodes, so that must be his quirk. Anyway, the business course says something interesting about the business course's role is to promote heroes, and they are the bridge between heroes and the rest of society. That's interesting. So like, the reason this is coming up is because the author has to show that they are doing something important too, because like the support group was already showing stuff. So this is just a bit of symmetry, right? This is actually incredibly important because, like, remember back when we were getting the stuff about what the support course can do and what the hero course is doing, we never got anything about the business course. So this is another situation though where it would have been nice if the idea about capturing a record of the heroes for the future, it would have been nice if that came up earlier, because that would have been more appropriate for the chapter that the stuff about the support course doing stuff appeared in. The general course too, I think, you end up seeing that a little bit with Shinzo, which is essentially the showing of the general course. But yeah, you finally get it here, so at least you get it at the end, so the symmetry is maintained. No one's being shafted here. I'm also very happy because I want to understand what would be the business course's role here. Now, the spoilers did make this whole line sound a lot funnier because it sounded more like they were doing propaganda, but you can kind of still see propaganda here, like the bridge between the heroes and the rest of society. That's called propaganda. Like, these guys are not going to show the true nitty gritty and the dark side of heroes here. They're not going to do that. They're not going to be like forthcoming about the most negative aspects of Bakugo, for instance. They're going to highlight his most positive attributes in this fight. It's propaganda. That's pretty much what the business course here is. Public relations is propaganda. Anything to pretty up the heroes is propaganda. So I do kind of want to see if this business course goes for a more idealistic, more balanced view of things, or if they only highlight the positive. Because once they start doing that, it's just going to be propaganda. But I did like that the author specifically specified what the business course did. Again, I think this could have been done earlier. I think it would have been more appropriate to do it earlier. You could have had them recording, the preparation to the war, and you could have slotted them in there with the support course or something like that. But this is just an issue of, tying up loose ends. Given that it's, if this was a novel, this should have been earlier. Given that this is a week-to-week manga where you have about 18 pages or so to work with, it doesn't. What matters is that he did it eventually. So props to that, and it actually was pretty worthwhile here. Anyway, page 5, Bakugo versus Shigaraki, all good stuff. It's okay. The line "how we all achieved victory here today," that kind of reminds me of how we all became heroes. So this is just, I think that's a nice little callback to that line, personally. Okay, page 6 to 7 is just, okay, this is actually the stupidest thing. I think it's funny that, the person that matters here is Shigaraki getting hit by the explosion, but what you end up seeing is the majority of the explosion hitting the outside of UA. All that energy, it just kind of blew past Shigaraki. Well, it didn't blow past him because it burnt him up a little bit, but it is kind of funny. The majority of the explosion is shown, there's no way around it. The energy that is being experienced, it's not happening at Shigaraki. That thing went, and it pretty much just made a giant explosion outside. Heck, even because of Horikoshi's the new star-shaped explosions, I can actually tell you, yeah, no, actually, in multiple points, so much energy was wasted in every single one of those star-shaped explosions. This is not impressive. This is just probably, okay, this is what every engineer hates: wasted energy. If we were talking about the efficiency of this attack, it is the most inefficient thing you've ever god-darn seen. This is actually extremely wasteful. So what's just funny here is that if they had a way to actually compress the explosion, let's say, into a sphere. Let's put some just to understand just how stupid of a thing this is. If you could make it so that the explosion was contained within a sphere that extends 1 foot away from Shigaraki in all directions, 5 feet from Shigaraki in all directions, that would actually be a much more impressive and a much more dangerous attack. It's just fundamentally, by the nature of an explosion, it's a widespread attack. Bakugo is not the person who should be going up against Shigaraki when he's only aiming at Shigaraki's body. If there was nothing but hand monster behind Shigaraki, it would be a completely different thing. But the entire idea of sending Bakugo in for a pinpoint attack is actually insane. This is by far the most wasteful thing here. The fact that the author thinks that drawing an explosion hitting air is impressive, it's not. just by the nature of what an explosion is, and by the nature of those star-shaped explosions, this was such a wasted expenditure of energy. The other thing that throws all this off too is that later characters are talking about, oh yeah, like Bakugo is so controlled and so careful about what he's doing. There is no care in an explosion. It's just flat out like, yeah, he directed it in one direction, but that's it. Like, I like how the characters have to go in and they have to pretty much fight against the nature of an explosion to explain that Bakugo is a reasonable person. And like, you understand why it's happening. It's because they're saying like, oh yeah, Bakugo wouldn't allow anything critical to be damaged, which is valuable. Because the other thing here is that we have the situation with the barrier. What exactly is going on with the barrier? I don't understand the physics of this. Because we don't have any like real life situations of a highly we don't have a lot of real life situations of a force field interacting with an explosion and the force field is magnetized. This is like actually really hard to wrap your hand around. Like, would this actually work in real life? I know I know that heat can decompose magnetic fields. But what matters here is that for this barrier, the important things are the pillars. So Bakugo's explosion passing through the energetic field actually isn't all that. It's not all that serious. Serious. That's likely the logic that the author would use too. He didn't hit the pillars, therefore the field, which is constantly renewing itself, is safe. Sorry, had to go a little bit deeper on that one just because I think that this whole little thing with the explosion is just funny. So again, so much energy was wasted. If they could just like capture all that explosion and keep it on one sphere around Shigaraki, it would be so cool. And the reason I bring up the idea about the sphere is because like later on, if they somehow figure out a way to contain Bakugo's explosion on one pinpoint area instead of letting the energy spread out, that actually might be able to severely damage Shigaraki. Or like, heck man, if Bakugo figures out how to like psychically contain an explosion himself, that would also be incredibly amazing. I don't know if anyone here can actually contain an explosion for Bakugo. Maybe Best Jeanist, if he has like the right cables, he could maybe surround Shigaraki. Actually, that'd be a pretty nice way of doing it. Like wrap Shigaraki, the backside, and the top and the bottom in like the titanium wires, and then let Bakugo like release the explosion right there, and then close up that sphere immediately. Like with all the energy that we saw from this one, if that energy is just centered on Shigaraki, it would be actually pretty deadly. Maybe we'll see that in the future. Maybe we'll see like a combo attack that allows that to happen. Okay, so page 8 is pretty much the author trying to establish that he would not, that Bakugo would not do something stupid, that he would not damage the exterior. Kaminari brings up the point that Bakugo is actually super polite and super orderly, bringing up the thing about tables and meals, and keeping his left hand up. Nejude's biggest fan. So this was actually pretty funny. Like, this girl was the girl supporting Nejude during the beauty pageant. So it kind of makes sense to me that she has a fascination with Nejude. Now, the unfortunate thing about this is that this girl's character is so unnoteworthy that the author had to call up the idea that she was involved in the beauty pageant and therefore she is intoxicated on Nejude's beauty. This is unfortunate. Like, that's her character trait. This girl's fixated on Nejude's beauty. But on the flip side, it's because she is such a non-character that he just has to work. He has to extrapolate from what little she's gotten before, that being the beauty pageant. So, makes sense. I never would have thought that she was the kind of person that would talk about gorgeous looks getting burned again. You know, the gorgeous is really what sets it all over the top. Page 9. Kaminari is saying that Bakugo isn't the type to fight haphazard. So what's really important here, and we were talking about this earlier, but this is the proof of it. The author does a segment where he shows the dust cloud, and then the next thing is the pillars being up. So this is actually the important thing here. Bakugo wasn't aiming at the pillars. Also, I should point out that we do see that some of the hand monster got destroyed here, which is really good to see, but we know there wasn't that much behind Shigaraki. Given that the author has confirmed that the pillars are like the most important parts here, we might have to see if there's some pillar-based combat later on. Okay, so Shigaraki then explains you condense your blast to curtail widespread damage while at the same time boosting the shear force. Then we go into page 10 where we see him grab Bakugo's arm after like ripping up his face a little bit, and he decides to destroy the arm. Now I can't really tell if he actually like destroyed the arm so much that his upper arm like is disconnected from his lower arm, but still pretty brutal. I mean, I think that's like mad respect. Like he was so terrified of that explosion that he had to get rid of one of those arms. I think that's really good. I think Bakugo should have kept like just shooting bullets into his face, but you know, okay, whatever. Yeah, given how much damage Shigaraki took here, again, if they're able to find a way to like contain all the explosion on one spot, that would be amazing. I think it would do a lot of damage. Given also, here's the other issue. Given that his pants are still intact, you know the explosion didn't actually, it was so pinpointed. The majority of explosion just hit his face and then exploded behind him, or the majority of the energy went behind Shigaraki, and it didn't even consume his entire body. Now, mind you, to a normal person, probably would have ripped the head off. But this is, again, unfortunate. Like, an explosion just isn't meant... Bakugo's explosions just aren't meant for such pinpoint attacks. Like, they're at the best when the explosion gets to damage as much as possible. Anyway, we go into the bottom of page 10, and we're finding out that Bakugo's growth and progress still doesn't interest. And we get to see a shot of Bakugo's face here. I can't really tell what's going on with the eye, in all honesty. I'm not sure what exactly happened. I can't wait to see this cleaned up to see what exactly Shigaraki did in terms of damage. I just don't fully understand it. It's just so hard to see. Page 11, we have a pretty good assault coming in from Mirko. I actually really like the choreography on this, of how she's like jumping from spot to spot. And then we have the whole build up for Shigaraki's actually got the power on par with All Might. Like, wow, who would have thought? Now, here's one spot that I actually don't fully understand. Like, when exactly did they get to the ground? That's what kind of surprised me. When did they get to the ground? Anyway, Shigaraki says that he's got power on par with All Might. We see them get whipped away probably by Air Force or something like that. And we go into page 13 where Bakugo's on the floor. Now, I like what the official translation did, because in the fan translation they said that Bakugo was Izuku's best friend. I was like, what? All for one? Like, no, they are not best friends. Like, Izuku might think they're best friends, but they are not best friends, alright? Izuku is not someone to believe on this one. So I actually like the translations wording here that he's closer to Izuku than anyone else. It's true. Bakugo is closer to Izuku than anyone else. They're not best friends, though. Now, here, I like that Bakugo, points out just how hard this is. I like how Shigaraki just kind of throws Bakugo to the side. With regards to whether or not, like, this is Shigaraki or All For One talking, I'm not too sure. There was something that the fan translations pointed out about the way he was speaking, but I forget it now, so apologies. I feel like there might be more Shigaraki in this one, personally, on this one, but I'm not too sure. Anyway, page 14 is actually something really smart on the author. This is where Mandalay specifically says, the wonky magnetic waves are affecting things. I've been getting nothing but static for a while now. This is actually really critical, because if Izuku is being brought in by the jets, or if he's coming in with allied forces, the author has now created a way for them to logically not be able to tell everyone that Izuku's coming. The value there is that the surprise is maintained. So this is actually incredibly critical. And if we have a surprise arrival by Izuku later, it is super critical. And might even be pivotal to why the surprise makes sense. So, gotta keep an eye on that one. That might be the single most important panel in the entire chapter when it comes to dictating the future of how things go. Anyway, we then go into a desperation build-up moment where Aizawa is begging people to protect Bakugo. And then we have the nice silhouette of Shigaraki against the destroyed UA building, which I thought was really neat. Now, I think the line for the fan translation was better, because in the Viz translation, like, once he graduates from UA, he's aiming to be the #1 hero. It doesn't have as much energy as what I read the first time on the fan translation, but you understand it. Like, he just doesn't want Bakugo to go down. And the way it's built up, I think, is really nicely done. I think in the anime, it's going to be really good. Then in page 16, 17, you pretty much go into a separate little thing here, where you have Sun Eater getting up and you have Nejuda getting up. Now, I should have realized that when those two got hit, it was going to be set up for something. Because it's the two of the big three, right? Like, they're connected like that. But I like the little conversation they have about getting a proper graduation ceremony. And then we have Mirio showing up. And now this is like the next big topic. What can Mirio do? What can Sun Eater do? The only person who is actually remotely interesting here is ironically the person that Horikoshi cares the least about, Nejire. The reason she's interesting is because she's the only person using a energy form or an energy that we don't fully understand. So the value there is that the author could throw all kinds of properties onto that energy, and we'd have no choice but to say, yeah, okay. Like, what are these guys gonna do? Is Sun Eater gonna go and eat a piece of Shigaraki and become a hand monster? That would be cool. What is Mirio gonna do? Mirio had to beg people to help him take on the Nomu because he can't do anything. Now, mind you, if Mirio has a quirk evolution that allows him to turn other people intangible, then great. Because like Mirio's only real thing here is that he's in a position where Shigaraki can't hurt him and he can't hurt Shigaraki. Now, mind you, don't ask me how it's going to work if Monoma is staring at Shigaraki while Mirio is attacking him. Don't ask me what's going to happen to the quirks in that kind of situation. But in this situation here, yeah, what are they going to do? Like, it's either going to be incredible choreography that manages to mildly annoy Shigaraki, or someone's going to be bringing out something, or like Mirio's going to be using like permeability to be able to, I don't know, control whether or not Sun Eater and Nejire are, I guess, tangible or not. Or like Jason Thomas pointed out, maybe Mirio can put his hand inside of someone and rip out their heart now, or something like that. I don't know. Like, that would be pretty cool. Now the other thing here that you have to also like kind of wonder is like, these guys are in a floating prison in the sky, which means that Mirio was there the entire time. So you then have to ask like, okay, what was Mirio doing the entire time? Well, given that he is popping up now, you must be thinking like, well, they must have some protocols to be like, if the fight goes a little bit too badly, we send you guys up there as backup. Now, we also know from the author and the volume extras that Class 2A, the girl from Class 2A at least, is going to be reappearing in the story. And given that Aizawa is right now begging for his student's life, this would be a pretty good moment to have the girl who is the proof that Aizawa is a good person show up to help out. But yeah, this is actually just... This is going to be interesting to see how exactly the author spins it. It's because, like, Mirio, he is such a one-on-one type character, and like, what else can he really do against Shigaraki? Like, poke him in the eyes? And with Sun Eater, like, Sun Eater could potentially poison Shigaraki, but given that right now his body has been established as being this thing that's constantly evolving, I feel like Shigaraki would just evolve past the poison and develop a body that can't be poisoned, which I think might actually be the reason why you don't want to poison him until you're sure you have like a potent neurotoxin that can actually take him out. So this is going to be really interesting. It's going to be interesting to see whether or not we go into like incredible power or we go into incredible choreography as to how we can stop Shigaraki. Like, really, of everyone here, Mirio is the only person that can actually approach Shigaraki safely, because like intangibility doesn't care about All Might level strength. But then the problem here is, of course, Mirio can't hit anything for anything worth a damn. So, you know, how do you balance that out? Unless you have Sun Eater come in there, but like Sun Eater's also physical. So like, again, it all comes back down to Nejire. Nejire has to be the one that to have her power extrapolated upon. The other thing is, like, you know, it's been a while. Like, did Mirio get a quirk awakening? I'm not too sure. It's only been a few months since we saw him at the war. Would he have developed anything? People are also asking, like, who's guarding Eri? It could be any other hero in UA. It could be like any of the could be any of the retired heroes. When we saw Eri in the All for One chapter, there was a random person right next to her. Eri might be in a shelter right now, and there might be a random hero nearby who's just keeping an eye on her. I think it's actually really weird to just put Eri among other people in general during a very dangerous situation. But yeah, I would say for now, like, Eri's probably with retired heroes or something like that. Someone's keeping an eye on her. Like, wherever Nezu is, maybe Eri is there as well. Anyway, guys, that's it for me. We went long for this one, but I hope you really enjoyed. Yeah, no man, like next bit of Hero Academia gonna be very interesting. I'm very excited. Can't wait to be blown away. Anyway, guys, let me know what you thought down below. And until next time, have a great day.